Welcome back to our Life Sciences lesson on plant anatomy. I hope your brains are fresh and you're ready to learn interesting new things. Previously, we have covered parts of the plant. We've looked at what does a root look like if we cut it open. We've looked at what does a stem look like if you cut it open. And the focus of this segment, we're going to look at leaves. If you cut open a leaf, what do you actually see? What types of cells will be there and how will they be arranged? To set the scene, we need to revise the structure of a plant. Right from primary school, you know plants consist of roots, stems, and leaves. And earlier on, we looked at the functions of these different parts, and we're now going to be focusing on what does a leaf do. The three functions of a leaf: photosynthesis, gaseous exchange, and transpiration. And to be able to do those three functions, the leaf has to be specially structured so it can carry out all three of them. So let's have a look. To be able to carry out these functions, which tissues will a leaf need? Meristematic, epidermal. Obviously, epidermal, they all need epidermal, so that's easy. Does it need meristematic tissue? Do leaves keep growing bigger and bigger? No, they don't. Once a leaf is formed, it's formed. So it doesn't have meristematic tissue, but it definitely needs epidermal tissue. Then, will it need parenchyma? Yes, it will. Will it need something to support it? Either collenchyma or sclerenchyma? Yes, it will. Will it need xylem and phloem? Most definitely, because xylem and phloem do the transporting. So let's look at that. A leaf will have all of the types of tissue except the meristematic tissue. Epidermal, parenchyma, collenchyma. Most leaves don't have sclerenchyma because collenchyma does the job for them, and then of course xylem and phloem. If we look at a leaf, if you look at the top surface of a leaf and the bottom surface of the same leaf, you'll notice the colors are different. And that is because the upper part of the leaf gets lots and lots of sunlight, so it does lots and lots of photosynthesizing, but the bottom part of the leaf doesn't get direct sunlight, so it has less photosynthesizing to do, so it actually has less chloroplasts, which gives it that much, much lighter color. But all parts of the leaf will have chloroplasts in them. Next one. Stems and roots are all round. So why is the leaf flat? And the reason is the leaf's main function is photosynthesis. That's what keeps life on Earth going. The fact that plants make food for all the animals that live on Earth. And the more food the plants can make, the more they can grow. So if we look at a leaf, it's got a broad, flat leaf blade. And that leaf blade is flat and thin, and the reason is it has a large surface area so that when the sun's rays hit it, the leaf can absorb as much sunlight as possible so it can do as much photosynthesizing as possible. Another point is that being flat means that all the cells are close to the surface so that all the cells can get gas. Because for photosynthesis, from previous years, you should know that for photosynthesis, cells actually need carbon dioxide. And being flat means they can absorb the carbon dioxide easily. Next question is, why do leaves have so many veins? If we look at these pictures, those are called leaf skeletons, and what has happened is that the soft-walled cells in the leaf have died, and the only things that remain are those with extremely thick walls, in other words, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, and xylem. And in the leaf, we find leaves have a main vein which has lots of xylem in it. It has side veins branching off, and there are side veins branching off, side veins branching off. And you can see they're all of a different thickness, and that gives you an idea of how much xylem they actually have in them. Why is xylem important? Why is there so much xylem in the leaf? Another requirement for photosynthesis is water. So the leaf veins take the water to all the cells of the leaf so that they can photosynthesize. Next aspect is, why do leaves need stomata? We talked about the gas that is needed for photosynthesis, which is carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide has to go into the leaf, and it goes in through the stomata so that the cells inside the leaf can use the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Other substances also come out through the stomata, and that stomata basically allow gaseous exchange to occur in a leaf, and that is essential, or else photosynthesis won't be able to happen. We're now going to cut open a leaf and have a look and see where do we find the different tissues inside the leaf. If we cut a leaf open, we'll see something like this, because the leaf is long and quite flat. So, this is quite difficult to work out what's going on, but we always start with the easy bit. And what's the easy bit? It's got to have an epidermis. So there we have the epidermis. It also needs an epidermis on the lower part of the leaf. How do we work out what the next type of cells are? Clue: look for dark portions, because that is where the cells have got thick walls, and the thick-walled cells are usually xylem or sometimes sclerenchyma. So if we have a look, there are a whole lot of cells with thick walls, and that is where your main vein is, and that is where your xylem and phloem are. All these other cells here, those are the cells that are going to be doing the photosynthesis, the functioning of the leaf. Because the leaf is so large, when you look at it under a microscope, you can't fit the whole leaf under the microscope. We tend to look at it in two different sections. And this first section we're looking at is where you have cut the leaf through the main vein, where there's lots and lots of xylem and phloem. So let's have a look at this picture under the microscope. If we look at this picture, easy to identify. There is our upper and lower epidermis. Then, these big cells in the center, there is a patch of xylem and a patch of phloem. Then, have a look. Look at these cells here. What type of cells are they? What can we look for to help us identify what type of cells they are? We look for the thickened corners. So at the top of the vascular bundle and at the bottom of the vascular bundle, we have collenchyma, and that helps keep the leaf firm. You'll always find a bit of collenchyma around the vascular bundle. There's also a coating called a bundle sheath around the vascular bundle. So what about the rest of the leaf? We're going to be looking at the leaf blade. That's the flat part of the leaf where the photosynthesis occurs. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the next slide. We're not going to be looking at the main vein. We're going to be looking at the leaf blade, or the flat part of the leaf. Sure, this looks quite confusing, but let's start logically. What can we recognize? We can recognize the upper and the lower epidermis. Oh my goodness, look here. There's a hole in the lower epidermis, and that's something we've looked at before. That is one of the stomata, a little pore through which the gas can get into the leaf. Then we find funny little patches here, and those are side veins or vascular bundles containing xylem with its thicker walls and phloem with its thinner walls. So what we can already identify is the epidermis and the vascular bundles. Vascular bundles bring the water, the epidermis does the protection, but the main function of the leaf is photosynthesis. So all the rest of these cells are involved in photosynthesis. If we look, we can see that the cells in the middle of the leaf, they're not all the same. The ones at the top are brick-shaped and tightly packed, and they are chock-a-block full of chloroplast. That's why the top surface of the leaf is green. At the bottom here, the cells aren't regular shape. They're rounded, and there's lots of air spaces between them. But because these cells all have chloroplasts in them, they form what we call the mesophyll, the bits filling the leaf, and they're all different types of parenchyma cells, and because their function is photosynthesis, they are going to have lots and lots of chloroplasts inside them. Now, isn't this a much easier picture to be able to work out what is going on? But it's actually showing exactly the same as the previous picture. It's just because it's a drawn one, it's much, much easier to be able to identify exactly what is happening. Easy peasy. Upper and lower epidermis with a stoma so that gas can get into and out of the leaf. Also, we can notice on the upper and lower epidermis, we have a cuticle. Okay, so the epidermis itself is the cells, the cuticle is the waxy covering, and in the epidermis we have stomata. What else can we recognize? One of the small vascular bundles. At the top, it's got big cells with thick walls, and that is your xylem cells. And we know because they've got thick walls, and then phloem cells at the bottom. So that's your xylem and phloem, and surrounding it, that layer of cells surrounding it, that is called the bundle sheath. And these are the tiny veins that we saw when we looked at the leaf skeleton, showing all the different veins. Next thing we're getting to is the rest of the cells. Okay, and all of these cells inside the leaf we call the mesophyll, and they're all parenchyma cells. But because some of them are brick-shaped and others are rounded, we can divide them into two different regions. Okay, the top ones are called the Palisade cells or the Palisade Mesophyll. That's these ones here, and they are tightly packed like that. They're full of chloroplasts because their function is maximum photosynthesis, because that's where the sunlight comes in from here and falls on those leaves. The bottom cells, they don't get sunlight. They still have chloroplasts, but they don't get a lot of sunlight, so they're not as important in photosynthesis. The lower part of the leaf, where the cells are irregular shaped, is the spongy mesophyll. Important is they've got large air spaces, because even though they photosynthesize, their main function is gaseous exchange. And if we look at this diagram, this is the type of diagram you would probably see in some of your exams, where you would have to label the different parts and then explain what each of those parts actually does, what function it carries out. You might find that this diagram makes it a little bit easier for you to understand all the different parts of the leaf. It also shows quite nicely the leaf veins that travel throughout the leaf. What we have covered is we've looked at the structure of roots, stems, and leaves, and by now I think you guys need a break.